of silver sewing scissors. The pattern was of calla lilies and buttercups, and the buttercups had been embroidered already. Floralinda could look out the window and see the forest spread like a nice dark green cloak upon the land. Forest as far as the eye could see, unrelieved by chimneys or houses or canals. The water in the flask was always cold, and the milk in the flask never curdled, and always had a nice fresh yellow cream on the top, the sort that one only gets as a treat when convalescing. The wheaten loaf and white were always warm, and the orange perfectly sweet, with not too much pith. The witch had really been very careful. The flasks and the loaves and the orange would renew themselves obligingly once eaten or drank. Floralinda thought it humorous to see the orange peel zipping itself back up when the last segment was gone, and bulging out again with fruit, like a balloon skin being breathed into. By sunset, no prince had come to fight the diamond-encrusted dragon and take her home. Floralinda was obliged to spend the night, then the next night, then the night after that. She had investigated her quarters thoroughly by then, and had begun to find peculiar things. The furniture, for instance, while pretty on first glance, showed that it had all been put in damask covers with stained ones beneath. The wooden furnishings were old and dented beneath their fresh coats of paint and varnish. It was long past the time when your mother and father looked at it and said, "This ought to go into the nursery," and even past the time when the nursery maid looked at it and said, "This ought to go on the scrap heap." The thriftiest housewife alive would not bother to freshen up such ragtag objects. There being no bath, Floralinda had to sponge her face and her hands with water from the cold water flask, which was indeed extraordinarily cold, and made Floralinda's face come out in red patches, and did not show her very well in the old mirror with the silver gilt peeling off behind. Nearly a se'nnight had she stayed in these peculiar quarters when suddenly, princes! They came one by one at first. The moment Floralinda heard horses' hoofs, she sat very shyly inside and did not peek out the window. She sat down on the bed and busied herself with monarchic positions on economic models, and finishing a calla lily on the hoop, being a patient girl and very well brought up. It would not be quite nice, either for the prince or oneself, if the prince made it all the way up the tower simply because he liked the look of one's face. But, and this was dreadful, he never made it up the 39 flights to her, nor did he ever come out. There was a lot of noise from the bottom, and a faint sound Floralinda was horribly afraid was a dragon crunching him up. Her fingers were still plugged into her ears as she watched his horse shake free from the tether and plunge off into the forest. But although she wept a little and felt very badly over it, she did not have time to mourn him overmuch. A short time after the unfortunate first prince, 2 princes turned up. She knew they were both princes, for she had peeked out of the window and seen the glimmer of what must be coronets. They had a cordial discussion Floralinda could not hear, being as they were 40 flights down and she 40 flights up, but they were moving about each other in that unmistakable, "You first, of course," and that, "No, no, I insist," as though standing before revolving doors at the hotel. She was too high up to tell if they looked young and strong and handsome, and could only conclusively say that they were polite and good at queuing. But oh dear, whatever the case, they didn't fare much better than the prince of before. The first prince was inside for hours, and then came that dreadful sound again, and then the second prince waited a few minutes for show before going in himself. There was no dreadful sound after that, which was hopeful, but nobody came up, and nobody went out. And hours after that came the sound of diamond-tipped dragon teeth dutifully crunching up princes, quite unfairly loud considering it was fully 40 flights down from Floralinda, owing to the dragon taking a break and not wanting to risk indigestion, maybe. But there was indigestion in its future. The tower became inundated with princes of all kinds. This high up it was impossible to distinguish tall ones from short ones, or brown ones from pink ones, or other common colours of prince, but there was certainly a hubbub of them.